Hi everybody, welcome to Awareness Through Movement, Home Move session number 9. Here we are, the last episode, the last class in this series for May. It's strange to think I've been doing this since March now, since this crisis began, this COVID-19 crisis. So, welcome. Today we're going to be doing a lesson called shoulder and arm circles. But don't be misled. Like most Feldenkrais lessons, it extends beyond what it states and includes the gestalt of the entire self, the entire body. And this lesson is no different. So now I'll make explicit in this lesson a through line that's been going throughout the lessons that maybe you've clued onto, maybe you haven't. That in these directions about going slowly and treating yourself with the sensitivity of a light touch so you can really sense and feel what's going on in yourself. The subtext to that is that what this process is about is actually learning how to learn, and that's the power behind awareness through movement. So what does learning how to learn mean? Well, what it means is through these processes, you're given the tools to be able to attend to yourself in movement, and to be able to broaden the peripheral sense of yourself into this soft focus, which includes more of yourself, more of the time. And that's the overarching thread, philosophy in Feldenkrais method and in awareness through movement. And that's where its power lies. That's where you get up off the floor afterwards and you feel that you have more of yourself included in your self-image, in this overall appraisal of how it is that you move and be in the world. So what does all that mean? It means that we're building awareness and we're using movement as the key, as the tool. So let's let that be the introduction today. And hopefully that means something to you. If you have questions about any of that, you can type them into the comments section in Facebook, in this Facebook thread. I will be monitoring it. And I'm recording this lesson earlier in the day, so I will actually be monitoring the Facebook feed live. So even if I'm speaking, this is the former version of myself, and the contemporary version of myself will be able to answer your questions in real time. I hope that makes sense. So, medical disclaimer, obviously, if you've got any injuries or medical problems, then please consult a medical practitioner before engaging in this process. Otherwise, you're good to go. As usual, I'm joined by Rachel. Rachel, can you give us a wave? Let us know that you're alive. Oh, there she is. Thank you. And she will be doing the lesson with you. And as always, you've heard me saying this over and over again now, but Rachel's not here to give you a perfect example of how to do the lessons. She's in the inquiry just as you are. However, what she will offer you is an idea of what configuration that you're supposed to be in at any given point in the lesson. What do I mean by that? What I mean is when you're following along by yourself, it's easy to vague out and forget what you're doing, and then I might be giving a direction and you're unsure about whether you should be lying on your right side or on your back, or some other configuration. So this will, Rachel being there as your visual yardstick, can offer you that idea of where you should be at. So all that said, let's we've got these two views of Rachel as well. We've got this lateral view and we've got this vertical view. And I forgot to put a little image of myself in here, so let's do that. Yep. Hey Simon. All right. So could you please lie down on your back? This is so often the way that we begin. It's just to remove most of the habitual muscular action that stabilizes us when we are upright in the field of gravity. So here we are, lying on our backs, lying on your backs, so you can relax as much as possible. And from this state, begin to move. So in lying down, can you please just scan your body? Scan yourself. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by scan your body? So feel for your floor contact, the places of you which are contacting the floor. And again, those of you who have been following along with these lessons have heard me spouting this ad nauseum. So you have some sense of it. And each time I like to give a different kind of focal point for you to zero in on. So this time I'd like you to feel into your shoulders. How do you make sense of your shoulders lying down on your back like this? So clearly it's the backs of your shoulders that you're getting some direct stimulus into from the floor. Thank you, floor. So what's the quality of experience at the back of your left shoulder as opposed to your right shoulder? And how does that experience translate to your experience of your arms? Do you have some qualitative sense of difference between your left arm and your right arm? Is one more there for you than the other? More in your image of yourself? And what about your legs? Is there any corresponding relationship to which leg feels more complete or solid or long or present to which arm? Now these are abstract questions. Any one of them might trigger some sort of spark of awareness in you, and it might not. So don't get too caught up on these questions registering in a particular way. And in fact, let's move on from this. Let's abort this scan altogether. And could you please roll onto your right side? Roll onto your right side, tuck your knees up a little bit so the left knee is on top of the right knee and they're on a 45-degree angle. Could you extend your right arm out in front of you so it's directly out at your shoulder height? Now, there's a couple of options for how to have your head here. You can have your head hanging off your right shoulder and resting on the ground. If that's comfortable for you, great. If it's not, then you can prop it on your right arm, in which case you'll have to have your right arm sort of extending up more above your head rather than straight out in front of you. Now, your left arm, could you drape it over your left hip? Drape your hand over your left hip. So your left arm is lying along the length of your body. Great. So, and really make sure that you're lying on your right side. So your back is extending behind you and your chest is extending in front of you, and you really are lying perpendicular to the ground. Is that the right word? At a right angle to the ground. Now, send your attention to your left shoulder. And could you move your shoulder forwards a little bit? And keep your hand where it is, so your hand's not moving, your arm can follow along. And just feel how it is that you can move your shoulder forward. And when I say forward, I'm meaning forwards relative to you, yourself. Okay, so unless I specifically say something in relative to the room, like the ceiling or the floor, we're talking you are the center point here. And could you move your shoulder backwards of yourself? Just feel how you do it, and feel, can you do this with a quality of ease? So it might be clunky, it might be rusty, it might be unfamiliar, but can you do it small enough and with a reduced effort that even in its lack of familiarity, you can arrive at something that feels smooth. So feel free to reduce, even if it's a really small movement. You just want to have a sense of there's a quality of movement here. And just go forward and back. And pause. Could you do it again? And this time just enlarge it a little bit. And this time you can free your arm. And in freeing your arm, you can be a little bit playful here. Think of your arm. Imagine you've just woken up and your arm's gone to sleep. And so you're moving your shoulder and your arm just kind of flops in response. And it can even flop onto the floor. So you've got this dead arm, dead weight that's able to flop forward of yourself when you move your shoulder forward. And then what if you pull your shoulder all the way back and let your arm flop behind yourself? And just see whether can you let your arm flop such that the hand even finds the floor behind yourself. And it can bend, your elbow can bend. So you're just this flopsy, popsy, Gumby, plasticine, dead-armed dick. That was a reference to Dead-Eye Dick. I'm not sure if that's appropriate. I'm not even sure where that reference comes from. Might strike that one for the record. All right, and pause. Bring your hand back to the position so it's draped over your left hip. And just do some gentle forward and back of your shoulder again, and just feel for the quality. Just feel whether, after having done that floppy version, does it feel a little bit easier now? And pause, roll onto your back and have a rest. Feel into your shoulders once more, and just to feel into a sense, get a sense of the quality of how both of your shoulders are lying, and the experience. How do you experience your shoulders now? Do you feel more of a difference between your left and right shoulder now? It's amazing how quickly our state can change. The state of the shoulders, just through the central nervous system directly acting on certain areas of the body. And all of a sudden those parts of ourselves just fill out. And can you roll back onto your right side and come back into that same position, so your knees are stacked on one another. Your head's draped over your right shoulder and your left arm, left hand is hanging over your left hip, and your right arm is out in front of you. Could you now gently and gradually explore bringing your left shoulder upwards of yourself, so towards your left ear. and then lower it back down. And just explore this direction. Just feel. Can you feel for a gentle, easy, quality movement going upwards of yourself? It's a bit like shrugging your shoulder. And shrugging of your shoulder is a familiar movement, isn't it? So can you find that familiarity in yourself? Is there a memory of this? And then go the other way. So go downwards. So pulling your shoulder down, letting your hand extend further off your left hip. And then go fully up and down. See if you can let your elbow be as soft as possible. Let your elbow be soft, and let your wrist be soft. Because if other areas of yourself are soft, then that softness can be spread. And you can find that softness in the parts of you that are actively moving, generating the movement. Okay, and pause in this position. Now I want you to bring those 4 directions together and link them with a circle. So try making a circle with your shoulder. So extend it forwards and then around and up and then around and back and then around and down and then around and forwards. And let your hand be still. In fact, now stick your hand on your hip, and you can think of being like a steam train. Imagine steam train wheels with those bands of iron joining the wheels. And as the wheels go around, those bands are doing this elliptical kind of orbit. So try and do the same thing. Still have your hand so it's still long, but it's still joined to yourself, still joined to your left hip. And what you're looking for here is a sense that this circle, and it's interesting, like the last couple of weeks we've been doing this pelvic clock stuff, and we've really been playing with circles and trying to get a circle when we're drawing the circles or going around the clock to have a sense of there is that it's the integrity of the circle's intact. So we want the same thing here, just to feel that you're going around in something which really is a circle. Okay, and pause, and now go the other direction around your circle. Notice the places where it's more difficult. See if you can highlight those or have a sense of it. Can you cognize? Is that a word? Is that a word, Rachel? I better start bringing a dictionary with me so I can understand myself. Just identify mark in your awareness when you get to a place that isn't as familiar, and just go, yep. Because that's key to building awareness, right? To be able to notice where there's a deficit, rather than just leapfrogging over it, which is a tendency that most of us have. Oh, that's a bit difficult. We'll just power through it or jump over it and get to where we think we need to be going. But this process is different to that. This process is about not shying away from those places and sinking into them further, being able to integrate them, understand them. Okay, great. Have another rest on your back. And again, just feel for differences between your left side of yourself and the right side of yourself. Your tracksuit pants have blended into the rug today, Rachel. Come back onto your right side in that same position. So knees bent, right arm out in front of yourself at about shoulder height, and your left arm draped along the left side of yourself. So your hands hanging over your left hip. And bring your left hand so it's in contact with the palm of your right hand. So it's like you've clapped your hands together and stuck them together. Now, could you, keeping your left arm straight, so both arms are straight. Now what I want you to do is slide that left hand forward of your right hand, and so you can think of this in two ways. Let's go with this way. Think of your hand doing this sensual creep to explore the floor out in front of you. So do that. So it's kind of like your hand is pulling your whole arm and shoulder and self, and so you do this semi-roll forwards of yourself. And just come back. You can come back a little bit further than your hand if you want to. Just explore a little bit of your wrist, then go forward again. And so when I say sensuous, it's kind of like you're having a tactile experience of your hand, your wrist, and the floor. And the softer you can make your hand, the more you can experience. And it becomes quite a hypnotic, soft exploration here. And then the other way to think of it is your shoulder is pushing your hand forward here. So before we were very much thinking about just your shoulder doing a movement. Now it's your shoulder very much pushing out your whole arm, and then very much pulling back your whole arm. And there's I guess the invitation is to feel how the quality is different when there's more of an expanded self in use. It's not so arbitrary as just trying to do this little shoulder movement. Your shoulder is now driving your arm, and this is something that your body, your nervous system understands. And pause. Could you now bring your left hand directly vertical of yourself, so it's up above your head and on the floor, so your palms down on the floor, and remain on your right side. And could you now explore the same thing but vertically, so reaching higher and then pulling down. So movement is still this, and it's less of a familiar movement, so go easy here. But can you evoke that same sensuous kind of tactile experiencing of the floor? So you're just wanting to have an exploration, an experience of what that rug feels like, what that floor feels like, whatever you're lying on. Maybe it's a yoga mat. And just feel what parts of yourself, what parts of your body can be co-opted to assist you with this extension of your arm. So your rib cage, your pelvis, so you might find that your waistline in reference to the floor is changing. Might be picking up as you extend your arm further upwards, and then it might be dropping back to the floor as you bring your arm back down. Okay, leave your arm in this extended reaching position. And can you now reach a little bit forwards and up? So a little bit forward, so you're kind of going in a diagonal now. Forwards of yourself and let yourself slightly roll. And then come back down and then go backwards of yourself and up with your arm, with your hand. So your hand's reaching behind yourself and up. You can think of it, imagine there was a $2 coin just out of reach. Forwards of yourself and up. And then someone has moved it, it's kicked across the floor behind you, and now you've got to extend backwards of yourself and up. Just feel, how does your pelvis get involved? When you go backwards of yourself, allow your head to roll. Allow your face to come up towards the ceiling. And you might find as you come backwards, there's a place where your hand wants to roll, where your arm wants to flip, so your hand comes, the back of your hand flips over to the floor, and then as you extend forwards and up, there's a point at which your arm naturally wants to roll. So just allow that, and just feel for the languor of that. This can be a languid movement that is kind of comfortable, kind of happy. There's a happy place in this roll. And pause. Bring your arm back over your hip. So your left hand's hanging over your left hip again. And could you now straighten your left leg so it's an extension of your spine. So it's directly down in relation to yourself. And just be sure that you've got this, because it's the tendency here is to let your leg go forward. So if anything, make it feel like your leg's extended a little bit behind yourself. So it's a nice straight line. You can think of this as a line from your foot all the way through your leg, through your hip, up through your spine and into your head, and it's a straight line more or less. Now think of your heel. Could you reach down with your heel? So extend down. It's almost like your heel is wanting to touch something that's further down on the rug. In fact, let's think of that. Actually, remove the heel idea. Let it be your toes, because that makes more sense in terms of something that's reaching. So that $2 coin is now a foot down beneath your foot. Can you reach down further with your toes to grab that $2 coin and drag it up? And then drag it up, pull it up. But you're keeping your leg long. So it's a funny thing. How do you do it? And how you do it is you start mobilizing your pelvis. In fact, what's the corresponding relationship here to the one when you were reaching with your shoulder? So another way to put that question is, how does your rib cage and pelvis come into play here? And now think of it as reaching with your heel. How does that change it? And I say heel because now that direct line is more pronounced. The direct line going straight down through your leg is kind of more where your heel is. Can you feel that tendency of your waistline to pick up when you're reaching with your leg. Bend your left knee again and put it on your right knee, and extend your left arm up above your head again. And just a few more times, reach with your left hand along the floor, upwards of yourself again, and down. Just feel your waist becoming involved. And have a rest on your back. And again, just feel for the differences between your left and your right side. Shoulders are probably quite pronounced now, but what about your legs? The legs feel different. Just gently notice your breathing and the quality of breath coming in and out of yourself, and just feel for the parts of you that are moving to allow this breathing. So for the last time now, I'll get you to roll onto your right side. Your knees bent, the right arm out in front of you. Could you now put your left hand behind you? So let it hang out behind you on the floor. So your left shoulder is slightly back and your torso will be slightly rolled. And what I want you to try and do is have your left arm be straight. So the elbow is straight and your palm is palm down. And now flip your palm and have it to the ceiling. And flip it back. Just feel what happens in your shoulder here. Next time your palm's facing to the ceiling, keep it to the ceiling. And you might feel that being in this twisted position, your left knee might want to raise. So let it raise if it needs to, and otherwise just let it sit against the right knee. And so you're basically in a spread eagled position here. So in this position, could you now slide your left knee across your right knee and further forward of yourself? Just feel how you can do that, and feel how this has a corresponding effect on your left shoulder. And then to go back, reach further behind yourself with your hand, your left hand. So it's kind of like there's a relationship here. This is an integration. It's an integrated relationship between your top part of yourself and your shoulder, and your bottom part of yourself and your knee, which is really your pelvis driving it, your left hip. So you're reaching behind yourself with your left hand and shoulder, and then you're reaching forward of yourself with your left knee and your left hip. So your pelvis is tilting and your upper torso is tilting. So just explore that back and forth. And how soft can you make this? Is this a tightly bound torsion? Or can you find a way to be loose here? Your feet stay together too, by the way. And pause with that arm extended behind yourself. Okay, now what I want you to do is make a massive sweeping arc with that left hand, that left arm. So it's extending up of yourself and then around. And what I want you to do is see if you can pass in front of your right hand on the floor. So, and then it comes down, descends down, you'll hit your knees and you come up and slide it over yourself and then drop it back to the floor, extend it behind yourself and then keep sweeping it up above your head, along the floor. And again, let this be a languid exploration, a sensual exploration, a tactile experience of the floor around you. It's almost like you're drawing a warding circle around yourself. How massive can you make that circle? How can your body respond? So your hand should be in contact with the floor the whole time. The only time it isn't is when it's in contact with yourself. So everything's involved here. And pause. Change the direction of your circle. Just feel. Do you have the same quality going in the opposite direction, or is it in some way different? Let your breathing be soft. Let your head turn when it needs to. And pause and have a rest on your back. So again, just feel for the differences. You probably feel a massive discrepancy between left and right side by now. Staying on your back, could you extend your right arm out to the right at shoulder height? Could you bend your left knee and stand your left foot? And keeping that left foot planted and keeping your left knee solidly pointing to the ceiling, could you, with your left arm, again, make that massive sweeping arc on the floor around yourself? So sweep it up towards your head and then over your head and face, out in front of you, in front of that right hand, and then back to your body. And you make contact with yourself, slide it over yourself, over your leg, and back to the floor. And again, sweep it around yourself. And so at the right moment, you can let the hand flip over and you can push through the floor with your left foot. And so you're sort of picking up your hips, picking up your pelvis, rolling when you need to, but with the constraint of that left foot is staying very firmly attached to the floor, and you're keeping your left knee as much as possible directed to the ceiling. Let's do a few of those. And pause, change the direction. And then pause and have a rest on your back. Just a brief rest on your back. And then gently, can you come up into standing? And when you get to standing, just stand for a moment and just feel yourself in vertical. So I've referenced at the beginning that we do a lot of this stuff lying on our backs to remove the habitual sense of ourselves in the field of gravity. So here you are. So how can you experience yourself through doing what you've done without too much of that habitual kicking in? So just feel how your shoulders are sitting. Feel how you're standing. And then go for a walk. Just walk around. Just feel how you accommodate these differences. How do you make the adjustments for one side that is so integrated at the moment and the other side which has really had no attention given to it at all? How do you somehow equalize this experience? And then lie back down. Could you lie on your left side, sorry. And Rachel, can you just come back a little bit? Great. So left side, and in that same position, so your knees are bent and your right knee is now stacked on your left knee and your left arm is out in front of you and your right arm is hanging over your right hip. In fact, if that's comfortable for you, and if it's not comfortable for you, then you can rest your head on your right arm, the left arm. So we're not going to do everything that we just did on the other side, on this side. We're going to employ the use of felt sense and imagination. And quite often it's the case that this is the more powerful way. So we'll see. So in your imagination, so just thinking and feeling here. So you might have a florid sense of the imagining, or you may not, and it might just be more of a felt sense in yourself, whichever way is okay. So just imagine, just feel the sense of your right shoulder moving forward and back of yourself. So don't do it in actuality, just think it, feel it. How would it be? Where would it go? What would it feel like? Moving that right shoulder forwards and backwards. And then up and down. How would it be? Moving it upwards of yourself and down. And then imagine joining those four directions into a circle. So big shoulder circles with your right shoulder. Okay, now in actuality, do a couple of movements up and down. Forward and back. And just how does that correspond with your imagining? And then do a couple up and down. And then do a couple of circles. Just a couple. And pause. Change the direction. And pause. Extend your left arm straight out in front, and so the back of your hand is on the floor, and put your right hand palm down on top of your left hand. And just imagine sliding that right hand forwards of your left hand. And back. Just imagine it. Feel into how that would be. What would drive it? Where would the contractions start? What would participate? Okay, now do it a few times. So sliding the hand forwards, pulling it back. Okay, that's enough. Now Rest your right arm up above your head, so on the floor above your head, so it's extended vertically above yourself. And again, imagine reaching along the floor with your hand, and then imagine pulling it down, reaching up and sliding it down. And what would participate in that movement? This one big long line along the body. Okay, now do it a few times in reality. And pause. Straighten your right leg. So now you've got this one big long line, a big long line down through your right leg, through your torso, along your spine, and straight up through your right arm. So imagine now reaching long with your right foot. Imagine what would participate from doing it on your other side. How would your pelvis respond? How would your waist respond? Okay, now do it. So reach long with your foot and then pull it up. How does that affect your right arm? And pause. Now reach with your right hand, reaching up and pulling down. And now can you join those two things? So reaching up with your hand and letting that at the same time pull your foot up, and then pushing down, reaching down with your foot and letting that drag your hand down, and just feel that there's this real union between these two ends of yourself. That the movement that's happening in your pelvis and your waistline is equally assisting the reaching of your foot and the reaching of your hand, the withdrawing of your foot and the withdrawing of your hand. That's it, and breathe as well. Pause. Now remember the movement of your hand where you're reaching forwards of yourself and up. So now do that and let that also affect your foot. So you've got a $2 coin that's somehow just out in front of your face but up high. And then that $2 coin gets kicked over and it's now behind yourself. So you roll a little bit. But reaching, not completely rolling, because you really want to accentuate the movement here of your torso and your pelvis. And pause. Bend your right knee again and stack it on your left knee. Place your right hand behind yourself. So put it back down and out. Palm up. So you've got a twist happening through your upper part of yourself, your upper torso, rolling back a little bit to accommodate your arm. Your left arm still extended out in front of yourself, so you're in this spread eagled position. And you might find that your right knee is wanting to pick up a little bit, which is okay, but if it's not, then that's great. And can you now slide that right knee forwards of your left knee? And just feel what it does to your right shoulder, and then reach further behind yourself with your right hand and let that withdraw your right knee. And just feel this relationship. It's the same relationship as that extension of your foot down and the reaching of your hand up. How is the thrusting forward of your knee and the reaching back of your hand, How are they assisted by the movement of your pelvis and your waistline and your torso? And then pause so you're comfortably in this spread eagle position. And now I want you to make this massive arcing, sweeping movement of your right hand up above your head and over your face as your face turns, and then forward of your left hand, up over your right leg, and then dropping back down behind yourself and then reaching around. So it's the same languid, sensual exploration of the floor. It's like you're trying to draw a circle as large as you can around yourself, and at the same time experience what that floor is, what the surface is, how much information can you receive through the sensitivity of your hand as it sweeps along the surface. And pause. Now just imagine doing it the other direction. Imagine the quality of the touch, the clarity of the action. And now do it. And check it against your imagined experience. And that's great. Have a rest on your back. So just feel how your two shoulders are arranged now. What the experience of your shoulders making contact with the ground is now. Bend your right knee, standing your right foot, and extend your left arm out to the side. And again, just imagine making this massive sweeping arc with your right hand and your right arm. Just imagine it. Don't do it. Just imagine it. Imagine the point at which you would need to push through your right foot to lift up your right hip, to turn your pelvis onto the side, to allow, to accommodate the sweeping of that right hand out to your left side. Okay, now do it. Just feel when your hand wants to flip over. Feel when it makes contact with yourself. Feel when your head wants to turn. It's almost as your upper arm makes contact with the side of your head and comes over your face. It's like it's turning your face. Your face is being supplely turned by your arm passing across. So everything's in a corresponding relationship with everything else. And pause and reverse the direction. How languid and easy can it be? And pause and let yourself lie long and have a final rest on your back. So just feel for the equity of experience in your left and right side, such as it is, meaning if you do feel an equity of experience, and if you don't, then that's okay. It's more important to feel what's actually there for you rather than to have me leading you. So we're back to the beginning now. What's the quality of your experience? When you scan yourself, what do you notice? If you check that now against what you experienced at the beginning, how is it different? Is more of yourself in contact with the floor than it was at the beginning? And what's your overall state? What's the state of your experience emotionally, in your thinking self, your kinesthetic self, the sense of your contact with the ground? And what I'll leave you with is just a sense of your breathing. So just notice the breath coming in and out, and notice what's moving that's enabling your breath to come in and out. What parts of you are moving? Notice how much of your rib cage is gently moving now. And how much of the back of your rib cage is in gentle contact with the floor now. And how soft your shoulders are. So I invite you to take the quality of this experience with you into the rest of your day. And I thank you for joining me for this lesson. Thanks, everyone.